Hello, I am Isabel Fangyi from University of Melbourne. Today, I'll talk about digital placemaking and urban digital transformation. Discussions on urban digital transformation tend to depict something virtual or hybrid, like platforms, augmented spaces, and data flows. Consequently, we pay more attention to urban surveillance, data security, and privacy issues. Less examined are the turf wars between global tech corporates and urban public spaces. Over the past years, we have seen a global trend for tech companies to propose ways of transforming urban public spaces. Apple Town Square can be one example. The short-lived strategy reflected Apple's attempt to rebrand its retailing business as a hybrid retail store and education center, where people would like to gather and hang out. 3 global town squares have been proposed in Stockholm, Washington, D.C., and Melbourne. Only one successfully opened to the public, the others being rejected by Stockholm and Melbourne. Since 2019, the Apple Town Square lost traction, yet its event programming remained through Today at Apple. My question is how to understand the Apple Town Squares and their wider impact pertinent to urban digital transformation. This talk will use the Apple Town Square controversy in Melbourne's Federation Square to illustrate how we can use an assemblage lens to understand the phenomena and its ramifications. Urban assemblage thinking originates from Deleuze and Guattari, who used the term to highlight the connections of human and non-human components in a charismatic network that allows for multiple and non-hierarchical organizations. An urban assemblage is interconnected between different parts, such as urban life, traffic, goods, money, plans, and policies. Places change when its heterogeneous components and exchanges cohere, sustain, dissipate, and disintegrate. Contrary to traditional planning discourse that tend to think of placemaking as clearly defined projects, assemblage sees placemaking as open-ended, contingent, and traceable through actors, actions, and industries. Urban planning, designing, development, governance, and dwelling can be seen as embedded in the synergist morphology of the placemaking assemblages. Similarly, the broader implication of the global hierarchy can coexist with the vitality of the local. In December 2017, Apple announced its town square plan for Federation Square. Federation Square is Melbourne's famous civic space. The governing body, Victorian Government, and the managing body, Federation Square Proprietary Limited, known as FSPL, both endorsed the plan. However, the decision lacked community consultations or community consultations and notifications to Melbourne City Council. As a matter of fact, both the council and the public voiced discontent, which evolved into online petitions and urban activism, also known as Our City, Our Square. In August 2019, Federation Square was incorporated into the Victorian State Heritage Register. Apple officially withdrew this plan. Soon after, FSPL hosted a civic design hack known as Hatfield Square that gathered the public groups to brainstorm Federation Square's future direction. The Victorian state also launched a review to examine Federation Square's overall condition, known as the State Review. Rather than reducing the Apple controversy to a binary of a failed business proposal or a public triumph. Urban assemblage can help us to break down the complexity of this process. To do so, I mobilize Bruno Latour's definition of olypticon. An olypticon is a special site where the microstructures of macrophenomena are assembled and crafted. It can be exemplified by the parliaments, the courtrooms, offices, even a photo or a map. I propose to understand the Apple controversy through 3 interlocking assemblages, namely the street, the boardroom, and the cabinet assemblage, that reflected respectively the view of the activists, managers, and the governments. Through these 3 windows, I see the Apple controversy as an intricate mode of politics that arises from the clash of different assemblages' concerns, connective styles, and modi operandi. The street assemblage can be captured by the 18-month activism, Our City, Our Square, that involved activists, campaign volunteers, general Melbourne publics, heritage advocacies, and local councillors. The activism adopted a hybrid strategy that combined conventional campaign techniques with performative elements. When Federation Square's heritage status was being recognized, the campaign demonstrates how public gestures can penetrate urban imagination, practices, and decision-making, and transform policies. At its most reductive interpretation, a street assemblage is constantly performed and embodied through the entanglement of networked corporeality. It combines urban protests and networked activism that request spatial equity, public ownership, and urban democracy. The boardroom assemblage can be captured by Hatfield Square that involved FSPL, urban marketing agencies, business partners, facilitators, and public members. The design hack invited 60 members of the public to compete in a pitch contest that helps rebrand Federation Square and maintain its popularity. The participants were given avatars of average female and male visitors based on a visitor insights survey and its according marketing strategies. And the winning ideas were geared towards addressing Federation Square's sustainability, value, brand, and engagement. Rather than being a discursive co-creation process, Hatfield Square was more data-oriented and goal-driven. It embodies a feedback loop from spatial value extraction to urban decision-making, described by Hecker and Hind as a form of infrastructural surveillance. A boardroom assemblage is tasked with maintaining physical and digital urban infrastructures through constant labor. It connects 2 layers of professional activity, including creating urban spectacles and mobilizing urban data. Its key concern is to achieve place vibrance and economic sustainability through establishing a feasible business model. The cabinet assemblage can be captured by the state review that involved the Victorian government, the City of Melbourne, public engagement consultation firms, communities, and various other internal and external stakeholders. The state review consisted of 2 parts. The public purpose and built form review focused on the public usage and the visions of Federation Square's physical asset, the Finance and Governance Review focused on aligning the financial and governance model of FSPL. Ultimately, the Victorian government took the review's recommendation and incorporated Federation Square as a state-owned cultural institution. The Cabinet Assemblage strategically considers urban development projects in an overall manner. It manages the interests of a vast range of stakeholders. It can compromise and make structural corrections to its mistakes. And it aims to achieve consensus by treading careful lines between seeing economy as value versus finance and conducting politics as democracy versus technocracy. The resolution of the Apple controversy reviews three entangled sets of issues. The architectural issue focuses on whether to demolish part of the square to make way for Apple. This issue was intervened by the street assemblage and settled in the Victorian heritage protection process, when Federation Square's heritage status was recognized. It was in a way settled. The second issue concerns the business model of FSPL, especially how it can be self-sustained. FSPL was mostly self-funded as a private company that managed a large public asset and programmed various public culture programs. Apple was brought to alleviate FSPL's financial pressure. The business model issue was revealed by the Boardroom assemblage and relieved by the Cabinet assemblage as a state cultural institution. However, the digital issue is still emerging through the street and the Boardroom assemblage, while being unrecognized by the Cabinet assemblage. Specifically, the digital issue concerns the techno-capitalistic property of Apple and its ability to transform the social-spatial structure of the urban environment. The activists from the street assemblage have begun to reflect on the social-spatial impact of Apple. The Boardroom assemblage has also begun to seek ways for FSPL's digital capacity and digital capital to contribute to the self-sustainability and its reproductivity. However, this level of concern and experimentation disappeared in the Cabinet assemblage. During the review, digital technologies have only been used as instruments to represent public opinion. Urban governments have yet to respond to tech giants like Apple and address its potential problems of platform urbanism. In fact, the 2019 Australian Federal Platforms Inquiry focused mostly on the content industries, how tech companies can shape the placemaking industries, change urban political processes, and corporatize public culture have been ignored. Digital placemaking can be seen in the intertwining of all these issues. The Apple Town Square proposal is built on the global trend of urban digital transformation. Digital technologies are taken as preformed and built-in urban environments without in-depth discussions. Further, the Apple controversy is part of a global movement against big tech's transformation of urban public space. Other examples include Alphabet's Sidewalk Lab in Toronto and Amazon in New York City. Both cases caused public protests. It means that the public started to reflect on tech companies' ambition to reproduce urban public spaces. So when we talk about urban digital transformation, we are talking about specific technological tools, big data, AI ethics, and privacy. However, we should also start to inquire into the complex arrangements and the trajectories of objects, actions, and values embedded in the increasingly corporatized and commodified public life. Public civic and cultural institutions face two new concerns. First, lacking funding and revenue. How would they respond when global corporates like Apple offer partnership in exchange for a role that assumes public cultural function? Second, as the logics of infrastructural surveillance spin out, whether public cultural sectors will become more corporatized and goal-oriented, and what are the consequences of that? To sum up, in this talk, I have utilized an assemblage lens to examine the shelved Apple Federation Square plan. I see Apple Town Square as an intricate form of digital placemaking that reveals the challenges faced with urban public spaces and cultural institutions. These challenges include the architectural, business, digital, and ultimately public issues. I urge urban public placemakers and governments to examine not only technological applications and data policies, but also the value systems that guide our decision-making processes. Thank you.